Hello and welcome to Kaz English, your ultimate destination for mastering the English language. Whether you're a beginner or looking to polish your skills, we've got you covered with engaging lessons and practical tips. Don't forget to visit our website at kazap.uk, that's kaz.app.uk, for exclusive resources and additional learning tools to help you succeed. Let's dive into today's lesson and take your English to the next level.
Okay, picture this. You've just gotten to your hotel after like a super long flight, and you're ready to just crash, right? But then, as you reach for your key card, it hits you it's not in your bag. You're locked out. Now, how do you handle that, especially if you're still learning English? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, how to smoothly navigate those tricky travel moments in English.
You know what's interesting about those situations? They happen to everyone. You're tired, probably a bit jet-lagged, and suddenly you need to explain yourself in another language. But don't worry, even a few key phrases can make all the difference.
Totally. So let's meet Linda, our traveler for today. She's found herself locked out of room 507, key card's gone. We'll follow along as she talks to the hotel staff, and we'll pick out some useful phrases and vocabulary that, might come in handy for you too.
It's like having a little script ready for those unexpected moments, The more you hear these real-world dialogues, the more comfortable you'll get navigating them yourself.
Okay, let's jump in. Linda walks up to the front desk and says, "Excuse me, I've accidentally locked myself out." She starts politely. Always a good move.
That's a great observation. Excuse me is kind of like a universal key to politely get someone's attention, especially when you need help. And accidentally emphasizes that it wasn't on purpose, right? It was an honest mistake.
It's good to know those small words pack such a punch. But what about lock myself out? Would English learners be familiar with that phrase?
Oh, absolutely. Lock myself out is a super common idiom. The words themselves are simple, but together they mean something very specific. You can't get into a place because you don't have the key. We've all been there, right? Locked out of your car, your house, it happens.
So even if you're new to English, this phrase is pretty straightforward. What happens next?
The staff member responds professionally. They say, "Could you provide your room number?" It's a bit formal, which is common in service settings, but don't let that intimidate you. They basically just need your room number to help you out.
Makes sense. They can't just give out key cards to anyone.
All right. Exactly. There are security protocols, got to keep things safe. Imagine if they just said, "Room number, please." Grammatically correct, but a bit abrupt, especially if you're nervous about speaking English.
So how they phrase things can really affect how comfortable someone feels. Let's see what Linda says.
She gives her room number nice and clear. "Yes, I'm in room 507. I left my key card inside." Simple and effective. This shows us that sometimes the most basic sentences get the job done.
I've totally been in Linda's shoes. Once I left my passport in a hotel safe and had to explain the whole thing, and, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. But back to Linda. The staff member says, "I'll need to verify your identity first. Do you have any identification with you?" Sounds kind of serious.
This is where things get interesting, especially for those learning English. The staff member is focusing on security, using the word verify. It means to confirm or prove something right. And identification refers to those documents that prove who you are, like a passport or driver's license.
So it's like even these everyday interactions can be mini English lessons.
Precisely. It's all about picking up on those keywords in context. Linda luckily has her passport, but imagine if she didn't. That's when things could get tricky, especially with the language barrier.
Oh no, that's a nightmare scenario. But thankfully, Linda's prepared. She says, "Yes, here's my passport." Always a good idea to keep your ID handy, folks.
Absolutely. This also shows how important nonverbal communication is. Even if you're not fluent, actions like showing your passport can help a lot.
It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words. Quite literally in this case.
And notice how the staff member says, "Thank you for your patience. I'll issue a replacement card." They acknowledge the inconvenience and offer a solution. That's good customer service, using those polite phrases to keep things positive.
Even if you're stressed, try to be patient. It really makes a difference.
Okay.
And replacement card, another good one to remember.
For sure. Replacement means a new thing that takes the place of an old or lost one. You could have a replacement phone, a replacement key, even a replacement tire.
So Linda's got her new key card. What does she say to wrap things up?
She expresses gratitude with, "I really appreciate your assistance." This leaves a good final impression, especially in service interactions where politeness matters.
Great takeaway. A simple thank you can go a long way. So we followed Linda through her lockout adventure, and we've highlighted some key phrases and vocabulary. It's amazing how much useful English for travelers is packed into this short conversation.
And this is just the beginning. Now let's take a closer look at some of those important words and phrases we encountered, especially for our English language learners out there. All right, welcome back to our deep dive. In part 1, we followed Linda's hotel room lockout drama and uncovered some handy English phrases for travelers. Now let's switch gears and dig into those key terms: verify, accidentally, and replacement.
Feels like a vocab pop quiz. I'm ready. But for our listeners who are still getting comfortable with English, why are these words so important?
Well, verify is super important when you need to confirm information, especially when it comes to your identity or personal details.
Yeah.
Think about checking into a flight, booking a tour, or even buying something online. You'll often be asked to verify your information.
So it's all about making sure everything's accurate and legit.
Right.
You wouldn't want someone using your name or a credit card.
Exactly. And it pops up in all sorts of situations, not just travel. You might need to verify your email address, your account details, or even verify a fact or some piece of information. Knowing this word can make you feel more confident in those situations.
So it's not just about knowing the word, but knowing when and how to use it. Makes sense. What about accidentally? That one seems pretty simple.
Yeah, it is, but it's also incredibly useful. We all make mistakes, right? Spill your coffee, miss your bus stop, or like Linda, lock yourself up. It happens. Using accidentally helps you explain those situations without sounding like you're making excuses. It makes you sound more relatable.
Like saying, oops, my bad. But in a more polite way, everyone understands.
Exactly. And it goes beyond language barriers. People everywhere understand making honest mistakes. So even if you're still learning English, using accidentally can help you communicate and navigate those little mishaps.
That's good to know. Sometimes those small words are the most helpful. Now on to replacement. Why is this one a must-know for travelers, especially those new to English?
Replacement is a lifesaver when things go wrong, especially when you're traveling. Imagine losing your luggage, breaking your sunglasses, or needing a new charger for your phone. Being able to explain that you need a replacement can save you a lot of trouble.
That reminds me of this time I lost my phone charger while traveling. Trying to explain that with, frantic hand gestures wasn't my best moment.
We've all been there. But imagine if you could just say, I need a replacement phone charger. Clear, concise, and effective.
So again, it's not just about knowing the word, but how to use it in real life.
Absolutely. And like the other words we talked about, replacement isn't just for travel. You might need a replacement part for your bike, a replacement button for your shirt, even a replacement player on your sports team. It's a word with lots of uses, making it a valuable addition to your English vocabulary.
I'm seeing how these seemingly simple words can be really powerful. But let's be real, learning new vocab can feel overwhelming, especially when you're focusing on practical English for specific things like travel.
I get that, but there's a way to make it more fun and effective, especially for those just starting their English language journey. The key is to move past rote memorization and go for a more immersive approach.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, instead of drilling yourself with flashcards, try surrounding yourself with real English content. Think movies, TV shows, music, even podcasts like this one.
So it's about experiencing the language in action, not just studying it from a textbook.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to start small. Choose a TV show with subtitles, listen to English songs, and pay attention to the lyrics. Or even read simple English books or articles online.
That takes the pressure off having to understand every single word perfectly.
For sure. It's about getting comfortable with how the language sounds. And here's a tip. Focus on understanding the overall meaning. Don't get hung up on every word you don't know. You'll be surprised how much you can figure out from context.
It's like solving a puzzle, but with words and phrases instead of pieces.
I like that. And the more you practice, the better you'll get at solving those language puzzles.
And that's where the confidence comes in, right? The more you understand, the more comfortable you feel speaking and using the language.
Exactly. Confidence is key to good communication. And the best way to build confidence is through practice and exposure to real English.
So it's not just about cramming vocab, it's about connecting with the language and having fun with it.
Exactly. Now, speaking of resources that can help you on this journey, let's talk about something that might interest our listeners focused on learning practical English, especially for travel. Have you ever heard of Kaz English?
Oh, I have. In fact, I was just about to mention it. For those who haven't heard of it, Kaz English is a language learning app. It's perfect for those starting their English journey and want to build a strong foundation.
What I find impressive about Kaz English is their focus on dialogue-based learning. They use all sorts of everyday situations, just like that hotel scenario we discussed, to teach practical English phrases and vocabulary.
It's not about memorizing words alone. It's about seeing how they're used in real conversations. And they break down each dialogue step by step, explaining the meaning and giving cultural context.
Like having your own personal English tutor right there on your phone. And they have a fantastic travel section, full of useful phrases and tips for all kinds of situations, from checking into your hotel to ordering food.
I think what makes Kaz English really special is how they make language learning fun and engaging. They use interactive exercises, quizzes, and even games to keep you motivated and make learning enjoyable.
And they cater to different learning styles, offering both audio and visual content so you can choose what works best for you.
So for our listeners who want a practical and enjoyable way to improve their English for travel and everyday life, I highly recommend checking out Kaz English.
Absolutely. It's a great resource, especially for beginners and those who want to build a solid foundation in conversational English. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've covered some key English phrases for travelers, and we've broken down those essential vocab words. But there's one more thing we need to talk about: the cultural side of language.
That's a great point. I've always thought that language isn't just about words and grammar. It's also a way to understand how a culture thinks and interacts.
Exactly. You can't really get a language without understanding its cultural context. It's like trying to get a joke without knowing anything about the culture it came from. You might get the words, but you'll miss the humor.
So how does this cultural awareness play into practical English for travel?
Well, different cultures have different ways of communicating. Some are more direct, some are more indirect, some like things formal, others prefer a casual approach. What's polite in one culture might be rude in another.
Right, I remember this one time when I was traveling. I tried to be super polite by using really formal language, but I ended up sounding so stiff and unnatural like a robot. It made things awkward.
It happens all the time. It shows how important it is to observe and adapt to the communication style of the people you're talking to. For instance, in some cultures, it's normal to interrupt someone during a conversation, while in others, that's considered super disrespectful.
That's a great example. I can see how those differences could lead to misunderstandings, especially when you're still learning the language.
Totally. That's why it's so important to be aware of these things. So how can travelers become more culturally aware, especially when visiting a new place?
I think doing some research beforehand would be a good start, right? Like reading about local customs and etiquette.
That's a great first step. Even simple things like learning how to greet people, say thank you, or ask for help in the local language. It shows respect and makes a good impression.
It shows you're trying to understand and appreciate their culture, even if you're not fluent in the language.
Exactly. And once you're there, pay attention to how people talk to each other. Watch their body language, listen to their tone of voice. And don't be afraid to ask questions if you're not sure about something.
It's like being a cultural detective, finding clues to figure out the unspoken rules of communication.
I love that. And remember, even if you make a cultural mistake, don't get too down on yourself. It happens to everyone. Just apologize if you need to, learn from it, and move on.
So it's about being open-minded, respectful, and willing to learn from those differences. Now, let's connect this back to learning English.
Yeah.
How can language learners incorporate cultural awareness into their learning?
That's a key question. I always tell learners to go beyond textbooks and grammar rules and explore real-world materials like movies, TV shows, music, even blogs or articles written by native speakers.
So it's about immersing yourself in the culture through the language, seeing how it's used in actual situations.
Precisely. You'll pick up on those little things, the humor, the slang, the expressions, the things that make the language come alive.
It makes learning so much more interesting and fun. You're not just memorizing words, you're connecting with the culture.
And that's where the magic happens. When you get the culture behind the language, the words mean more and communication becomes more real.
I totally agree. It's like finding a secret code that unlocks the heart of a culture. And speaking of unlocking potential, I think this is a good time to bring up Kaz English again.
Absolutely. For anyone who missed it, Kaz English is a language learning app that uses dialogues to help you learn practical English for everyday situations, travel included.
What I like about Kaz English is they don't just teach language, they also include cultural insights in their lessons, helping learners understand why people say what they say.
Their approach is really effective because it mimics how we learn languages naturally, through real-life interactions and being immersed in the culture.
And they make it fun. Their interactive exercises, quizzes, and progress tracking keep you motivated.
So if you're ready to explore the world of English language and culture, Paz English is a great place to start.
You can go to their website, https.kazap.uk, to learn more and start your English learning journey today.
And with that, we're wrapping up this deep dive into practical English for travel. We hope you've learned some valuable tips and feel more confident handling those tricky travel moments, especially when you're using English.
Remember, language learning is a journey, not a destination. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep those cultural antennas up. Thanks for joining us.